Welcome, everyone. I am pleased to announce to you our latest Afterlife Series guest. We have Jenna Longo, who is a synchronized skating legend. She is a Haydenettes alumni with many accolades to her name. She is a 7-time U.S. national champion, 8-time world team member, and 4-time overall world medalist. Vic, I'll let you continue on.
So along with competing with the Haydenettes from 2007 to 2014, she also went to school and made the big move to the Big Apple. She's now working as a tax accountant for a hedge fund. Welcome, Jenna.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
We're so excited that you're here. So talk us through your afterlife moment. You know, after such a big career, at what point were you like, okay, it's time? We're moving on.
Okay, so it's going to sound super cliche, but I definitely had a structure in the sense of I came from a very traditional family. I did very traditional schooling, and I ended up sort of going into the career path that my father chose, which sort of like laid out very precisely how I was going to sort of go with skating and go with school. I was really fortunate enough that Haydenettes was right around the corner from the university I went to. So it sort of gave me a really nice window. I was also really fortunate to skate Haydenettes through high school. So I knew I wanted to continue when I went to university. So I did the 4 years of university, and I sort of thought, okay, I'm not quite ready to leave, and becoming a CPA and a certified public accountant in the States, you do have to have 150 credit hours. So it's about one more year additional schooling than an undergraduate degree. So it kind of gave me an opportunity to skate one more season. And I just was really fortunate to extend it. I don't necessarily think I was ready to sort of give it up. And I definitely would have liked to keep skating. And I always say, oh, I could have done one more year and I could have studied for my exams and sort of got the break and got to enjoy skating one more season. But, you know, I was offered a job, and I was so ready to move to New York. I was going to move in with my cousin, who I'm very close with. So that it doesn't seem like there was one moment in time. It seemed like it was pretty planned out for a while. But I was like fortunate enough that I did get 8 seasons to skate. And I know a lot of people can't really say that they skate 8 years in the senior division. So
Totally.
Also, so you knew that last year that like this was it. That was the end. You're really like fully milking it and everything then.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's so special.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because, you know, 2013 was really the year that I graduated undergrad from university. So I think a lot of people expected, okay, well, you're going to compete in Boston, which is your hometown. It's the perfect time to leave the sport. And I was like, no way. One more year. So I was really happy, and it ended up working out.
So did you feel then, I guess, since it happened really organically, did you ever feel like an identity switch? Like, I'm not synchronized skater Jenna Longo anymore? Or are you still like, no, like that's still a part of me?
It definitely, well, when I interned in between 2013 into that grad year. So I got a chance to live in New York City for about 2.5 months, and I worked with a lot of the colleagues that I ended up starting my career with. And because I was still sort of in the sport, a lot of them knew, you know, I was still waking up really early, and I was still skating before work, and I was going to the gym after work. So I still had a pretty like strict like schedule, I guess. Exactly. So they sort of knew, but yes, I do agree that it was a pretty easy chapter to close and to move on because it did happen pretty organically.
So great.
Yeah. I have question number 2, which I think is the most important question of the interview. Did you know that you were and still are a synchronized skating legend globally?
No.
I had like a moment where like people know me.
I mean, I definitely felt like I was one to watch for in the US, but I feel like a lot of it was attributed to US figure skating and one of the programs that they do actually still have, which is called our Dream program.
Oh, so
really, really great. Yeah, so basically it came from the idea that team sports really do have sort of, not necessarily superstars or all-stars, but they do have people that are those like leaders in the sense of like marketing and sort of promotion, and that's where the whole idea came from. And we were really fortunate that this program took off, and it completely still is one of the best programs I think we have. So I was really fortunate to be one of the original members of that. So I do think that sort of like, I don't know, helped and it really did like bring a lot of faces to sort of the front line, and it was really fun. I mean, we got to be role models for our younger skaters, and that's sort of the best part.
So you're telling me that National Federation gave attention to synchronized skating?
what's that like? Because we don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so I have to say,
blast. I'm just curious.
no, I mean, I have to say US figure skating is phenomenal. They totally understand that synchronized skating brings in so many of our members, and it really does bring in a lot of revenue. I mean, our world championships that we host in the US are like unbelievable revenue makers, and they really do appreciate and support that. And we are completely seen as one of the main disciplines. We are not really seen as a program or like a developmental discipline. We are right there with singles, pairs, and dance, which is amazing. I'll tell you a little bit more about that when we go through a few more questions and sort of like what I still do within our sport. But I have to say they do a phenomenal job.
Do you think they want to be the governing body of synchronized skating in Canada as well?
We're taking up
North America.
We would love it.
Collaborate.
Maybe we'll just
So,
there.
with that legend status achieved, there's no way the American Skating Federation would just let you ghost them cold turkey. Please tell us that you're still involved in skating somehow, some way.
Yes. So I could talk a little bit about when I was actually still competing. I was a member of our Athletes Advisory Committee. So that's 50 athletes of Team USA, 10 from each discipline. So it's men's, women's, pairs, ice dance, and synchronized skating. So basically it's, because we have to have a certain amount of athlete representation and voting, that 50 athlete member group votes on rules and all different sorts of things within like the delegation. So because of that, you then can sort of become members of different committees and different leadership roles. And so once I stopped skating, I decided, maybe it is time to sort of take on more of a leadership role within the athlete body, because you do get to stay in that athlete body for 10 years. So up from your last international competition, you're still considered an athlete for 10 years. Wow. So I still technically am an athlete until 2024. Can't get rid of me.
Right. You would want to.
Yeah, so we follow USOPC rules in that regards, and they do the same thing in USOPC, and all different NGBs also follow that. So like USA Swimming, USA Archery, all those.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool, and it's very structured, and they do a really good job. So now I'm actually on the board of directors of US Figure Skating as an athlete rep for synchronized skating. Yes, which is really, really great.
That's to the list of accomplishments.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's really, it's so cool to see like the inner workings, and now with what's happened with like COVID and what's happened with like safe sport, it's a big thing now for us that we really have to be mindful of and pay attention to, sort of not necessarily, well, actually Synchro does sort of add a lot of difficulties just because of like the age, and also men and women competing on the same team. But it's completely changed the way that we see and travel our athletes and all that. So it's been really, really interesting to be involved in that. And then I also am working on my judging. So I did do 2 years of non-qualified judging So really local competitions, which was really fun to sort of go back to those first few competitions that I remember competing at, like as a 7-year-old, and getting to judge there. And I just need some test appointments, and then hopefully I can get a sectional appointment and move on from there. We'll see.
Like motivated. I don't know about you guys.
I'm like, what more can I be doing?
I have to go book my coaching courses or something.
But is that quite common in the US that skaters will stay in the sport in some way or another? Or is it kind of more like you were saying before, where it's planned out, like their career is set for them?
I do think a lot of skaters stay in the sport as coaches. We don't necessarily see a ton that stay within the sport on sort of like the administrative side and in the committees, because I do think, you know, a lot of the athletes that are on those committees do kind of make up that AAC group. So you're only really choosing from a group of 50 where there are so many athletes in the US. And that's actually one thing that we are working on, is that there's so many like amazing skaters that maybe didn't make it out internationally, but skated at nationals, both for synchro as well as, you know, singles, pairs, and dance, that, I mean, they have amazing careers and amazing jobs that could just help so much in what we do. And we definitely want to like tap those resources. So I do think that's one thing that we need to like work on, is keeping skaters within that sport. And like we are noticing that a lot of our officials are sort of like, we have a huge gap of ages. We have a lot of skaters who are like right out of competitive skating, and then maybe like a huge gap from like that 30 to like 55 age range, and then we have a ton more, you know, on the upper age range. So it's probably a mix.
Yeah. Okay, so we do have some fan questions for you, but can I do a curveball question that because you're so involved at the federation level, I'm just curious, with all of the social movements that are happening right now, we have Black Lives Matter, Me Too, all very important things, obviously bringing safe sport into the conversation regarding especially Me Too. Obviously it's bigger than that. But even now you're seeing coronavirus and COVID-19 becoming this kind of taking this social turn to it, you know? So I'm curious, like from a federation standpoint, in what ways have you guys had to include some more like sensitivity towards those things in your policy making? Sorry, that's a curveball question.
No, that's totally okay. We actually did create a working group. So the board was sort of given a task of thinking and tapping in to sort of who we know within the sport who could be a part of this working group. So there is one girl in particular that is a Team USA member, and she is a person of color, and she went to Harvard. And she's a synchronized skater. So for me, I was like, why am I going to say, oh yes, I absolutely want to be on that working group, when she's a much better representation of our sport and what we need with all this, you know, all those social changes that are happening. And then we also sort of had to come up with 5 things that we expected that working group to be able to work on. And like one thing for me, and it seems maybe insensitive, but it's really interesting to me that Capizio and Danskin and Mondor, who we buy tights from, and we require every single female skater to wear tights, they don't even sell any color besides suntan.
Right.
You know, and like, I'm like, I think we need to be reaching out to those companies, because we support them as a federation, even though it may not be direct, and maybe our federation doesn't purchase our tights for us, but every single skater has to go through that company and those organizations and purchase and support them regardless. So, you know, like there's certain things like that. And that's, you know, one that's, you know, it's probably out of 100, it's probably 99 that they're looking into. But, you know, that working group is really there to sort of figure out what we need to do short term and what we need to do long term to make sure that US figure skating is sort of like in the realm of social change and policy, which is really cool. I mean, we definitely like react pretty quickly, and it's really great to see.
Well, it's good to hear too that things are happening behind the scenes.
Yes, because I think a lot of times like you do just see sort of like the social media posts, and
right.
You know, you are a huge organization, just like major companies, like things have to go through so many people before you can
checks and balances.
Yeah,
but it's like when you have these unofficial brands of the sport,
exactly,
it's so hard, because since it's not official, how do we ask them for something different, but also it's so tricky. I definitely understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like, a dressmaker, like most of us as competitive skaters, like a lot of our dresses are custom. So, it's something that you really should be able to just ask. Although I know a lot of younger teams definitely purchase sort of like the stock dresses, where like, that is definitely frustrating too, because those stock dresses, I'm sure, are coming in like a basic nude if they're showing
right.
like a nude. And I shouldn't say basic, that's, obviously not the correct term, but that sort of nude that we're used to seeing.
But people know exactly what you're talking about when you say
exactly.
Nude, right? Because we assume nude will match my skin when not all my skaters have my skin color.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's so
Maybe we should connect you with our previous guest, with Flokia, and see if we
I
can
was
That's a good point.
Yeah.
She has fishnets in lots of different colors, and she's very inclusive. Krista, she's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, we're
definitely.
What a connection.
So, speaking about other people, let's roll in with some fan questions here. So the first one comes from a Canadian skater who wants to know, what is your most cherished competitive moment, or moment in competition, rather?
Probably 2010 Worlds. Just because Colorado Springs was never an arena that the Haydenettes did well in. And this dated way back to Lynn Benson, because there was always like issues with altitude sickness, and there was, in 2007 we competed there for nationals, pretty much our entire team, there was 12 girls who were beyond sick with like a neurovirus, and there was like 4 of us that were healthy skating our long program. So it was just like we had it in our heads that we're like, oh no, this is going to be like disastrous. And to then like come home with our first overall world medal was pretty amazing. So I have to say that.
You said that, because I remember being there watching. I was probably in grade 6 or 7, and I remember watching, and I remember you specifically, and that is when my fandom started. I was like, I want to skate like her.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that question did not come from me, but
I have a question that comes from me that has everything to do with her fandom. Do you or do you not know about the life-size cutout?
Okay, I remember seeing it on Twitter, which is hysterical.
Did you know that it was Alessia?
I feel like Alessia did tell me, or no, your mother told me when I came up to.
Are you kidding me?
Vera sold you out.
Her mom said that right now too.
She's listening to this whole interview. Yeah, so I was feeling pretty inspired, which I think is huge in sport. And you reminded me a lot of what I wanted to be. As soon as I saw you skate, I don't know, you're so full of passion and life, and I was like, that's it. That's what I want to skate like. So that's when it started.
I think that's so special, because I'm sure all of us have that one synchro skater that we could rhyme off, right? Like for me, it was Kara Moyer from day one. Kara Moyer was my dream skater. I was like, if I can skate like that girl, I've done something right. And I mean, any of the Moyers, frankly.
Yes.
Jen Beauchamp was the Jenna Longo of Canada. So I mean, I'm sure, like, Alessia, who else did you watch all the time?
Sorry, I was loyal.
Girl, I was loyal. I just had a few.
No, in Canada, probably Nicole Manahan.
There we go.
Yeah, I always watched Nicole. It was probably Nicole and Jenna.
Yeah. Jenna, do you have any synchronized skating like idols or legends that you?
Well, for me, growing up before I was on Haydenettes, it was definitely Katie Renzi. And Mama Renz, or Mrs. Renzi, was sort of like our costume mom, and she was there for like every competition. So all I wanted to do was be Katie Renzi. And she like also looks like me, like dark hair, and I was like, I could be it. I could be her.
You ever tell her about that?
Actually, well, no.
We're gonna tag her.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, 15-year-old Alessia would be jumping in her boots right now. If you knew, I would be having an interview with you right now.
Oh my gosh.
Even 23-year-old Alessia.
2020 Alessia was like, I can't drink today, I need pomegranate juice, I need to keep it together.
Well, that was like me when I came to the Nexus camp in 2014. That was like a fangirl for me. So I was like, oh my God.
I'll never forget when I saw you there. I was like, Mom, she's here.
When Anne was like, okay, everybody pick a partner, I'm like, where's Jenna? I
know that photo of you guys together. I love that.
I know.
I felt that. Very jealous.
All right.
So is anyone going to ask the supercharged question then?
Yeah, supercharged question. Here we go.
Oh, okay. So this is another question from one of our Canadian girls, actually a former Nexus skater. I considered skating for Team USA at one point. Did you ever consider skating for Team Canada? Was
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Really?
When?
Yeah.
What year? Could we have been?
You know what? I think it was in between my high school and college. I was like, you know, it would be really, really fun to sort of take like a year or two and just sort of like explore and maybe like go and compete in Canada. And like I did kind of like think about going to Finland, but the US does have some pretty strict rules on releases of their Team USA skaters. So that sort of nixed it pretty quick. But I mean, I think it's like such a cool idea, you know, and I wish that it was so much easier for our skaters to sort of go in and out of the country, because you can learn so much. I mean, when we had Laura from, she actually was Team Fantastic and then ended up competing for Rockets the next year after she skated with us. But, you know, she may not have been our like best skater, but we learned so much from her because they just train so differently. And even though like our coach was from that organization, you know, to have someone skating there every single day with you, like it's amazing how much you learn. And even when Anne would come and help us with like elite camp for 3 days, I mean, the amount of information that you would take away from her, you can just imagine like if she was, and if we had a skater from a Nexus, you know, right there with us like, skating, it's amazing. So
right.
I do wish that it could happen.
Yeah. And I think even to go along with that now with Lee Chandler, his involvement with the Haydenettes, that's going to bring some of that.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think it's important to mix.
It's all about sharing
methods.
Totally. And I think it works both ways, right? I mean, like, it's from my experience of going overseas, it's like you're presumed to come with all the knowledge, but I think what I took away from teaching them was far more than what they got from me.
Right.
There, like the exchange of knowledge is insane, and I think to have you in Canada would be actually an incredible gift to us. AKA, would you like to come to Quebec City? But like we'll talk later. Wow, so cool.
Which Finnish team would you want to skate for if you want to stay?
I mean, I would definitely have to say Rockets just because. Yeah, I mean, we got to stick it in with, you know, Saga did coach me for 8 years. I have loyalty to her, so.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So how does skating fit into your life now with work or you know, or what kind of way does work fit into skating rather?
So I religiously skated every single morning for probably like 3.5, 4 years when I first moved to the city. And I was like, I am going to do this for the rest of my life. I'm not losing any of my skills. And then when I switched jobs to work for the hedge fund, the hours changed a little bit and it just became a lot more difficult to get to the rink before work. Just because, I mean, as much as New York seems like it's a really small place, it is so west and it does take a long time to sort of get even like into like central Manhattan. So I sort of stopped as much, you know, and I skate now like here and there. I mean, obviously with COVID, I haven't really been on the ice because especially in New York, our rinks are still closed. But I would like to keep skating more, but that's like actual physical on the ice. But I probably have a skating call almost every single day. So it's very much still there every day. But work is pretty prominent now that I do have to sort of work around work instead of the other way.
So have you filled like the physical like activity void in a sense, like with something other than skating because it's difficult to get there, or like anything else, you know?
Yes. So there's a really, really amazing gym that we found in New York City, and it's like a sports conditioning gym. So it's exactly like a team practice, which completely filled the void that I was even missing when I was just skating on my own, because as much as it's really easy to push yourself and I would, you know, come to the rink with exactly the drills I was going to do, but you just don't necessarily have that like camaraderie and like the community, right? So, and New York is definitely like a different area, especially the Sky Rink in Manhattan. It's not necessarily your like atypical rink that does have the community and the coaches are super friendly and they become your family and stuff. So I definitely miss that. So exactly, like I definitely needed to like fill that void. So when I first moved to New York, I got really into SoulCycle, but then I definitely realized I needed something more than just spinning because it just wasn't really doing it. So yeah, I mean, we like love the gym that we found, and it's like there's like competitions that are in house and stuff, and it really does like keep up with both like the physical, but also sort of that like athlete drive and the strive that you need to like keep going and stuff. So
absolutely,
yeah, it's just been fun.
I know you're quite into water skiing. Is that correct?
Yes.
So
yep.
What came first, the water or the ice?
Definitely the water. So I grew up on a lake in Connecticut, which is so fun. And my dad got me up on water skis when I was like almost 2.5, almost 3 years old, behind the boat, which is like completely like ridiculous and crazy. And it's funny now that like you see, like I'm like, I was how old when I did that? Especially because like our next door neighbor is 7 or 8, and I'm still helping him try to get up on skis now. So I'm like, how was I 2? That's insane.
The legends day one.
And I'm like, like my older brother, I'm like, did he do this? Like, I don't think so. But we were definitely like wild, active children, and we were always crazy. So. But yeah, I mean, skiing's really fun, and we do show skiing, which is really cool. It's really popular in like the Midwest in the US, and I don't know if I'm sure it's popular in Canada too.
Maybe not to toot my own horn, but I actually got up on skis for the first time last summer, so collaboration.
We will insert a photo at some point.
Yeah, we'll insert a clip.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
But the team skiing photos that you post, I'll insert one here too. Like, I've never seen that in Canada.
Yeah.
What is it like, synchronized skiing?
Wait, say that again?
Is it like synchronized skiing? Like what, the team, I'm confused.
Yeah, so it's like, we call it show skiing. So there's like US Nationals for USA Water Skiing, which is like your 3 event tournaments, which are slalom skiing. So it's like one ski and you're going through different buoys. There's trick skiing and then there's jump. And then show skiing is you literally put on a water ski show, and there's like clown acts and there's pyramids, there's like doubles acts. So like a lot of women will like climb all over different guys, and it's really hysterically like funny. And like I have the best memories of like practicing with my like best friends, like losing, like there was one practice I like my bathing, for some reason I wasn't wearing a wetsuit, my bathing suit just like broke. I'm like, you gotta drop the handle, like I don't have a bottom on. Like, you know what I mean? You're just like, yep. And like those are just memories that you'll like never forget, because you're just like, first of all, what were we doing? Like climbing all over each other, like water skiing. It's just like completely ridiculous, but it's really fun.
Oh my gosh.
So you're a summer national athlete and a winter national athlete, so you're actually saying.
Wow.
Again, legend. Wow.
It's really incredible.
An absolute prodigy. So Jenna, what is one, I'll use the word failure, that you cherish, and what lesson did you take away from that in either your skating or your water skiing career, or both? Was there something that linked together?
Yes. So there was one that I do like sort of remember in particular. So the 2012 season where Worlds were in Sweden, we skated to Dancing with the Muse and Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga.
Oh,
yes.
That's my poster. It was
So that year we competed in Synchronized in London, Ontario, which was pretty early in the season. for us at least to go internationally. And we ended up like doing very well. And we got really great feedback. And it was sort of like the first year that we started the season with like amazing feedback. And like, we didn't think we were really going to have to do a lot to the programs besides just like small nuances and like removing certain things from here and there when we just obviously, you know, got faster and better. But we ended up going to Neuchâtel for our second international that year, really close to nationals. And we got really bad feedback. And we had sort of entered into that competition thinking we sort of had it in the bag. We were going to do really well. And it was sort of the first time that I think we went out as a team thinking we were going to do really well at an international, and we didn't. And it was really upsetting. And it, you know, I think we were so used to sort of always coming from behind and being pleasantly surprised with our results versus like always being on the top. So I definitely like let my emotions show in the locker room. And I remember it was our junior team and ourselves, and I was visibly like upset just because like it just felt like, oh my God, like how is this happening? Like we didn't think that this was going to happen. This season had been going so well, and like we are so close to nationals, like this can't happen. And a few of our members of the team, like they were pretty upset that I had like allowed that to happen and allowed myself to sort of like release emotion. So I don't necessarily think it was a failure, but it was definitely like a moment in my career that I sort of had to like take a step back and realize, okay, what do I want to be for the team? Do I want to allow myself to sort of just be me and let them see that? Or do I really just need to be sort of like that stoic, like role model leader that's always positive? Because I think a lot of them sort of expected me to be like, all right, like, you know, because every year at French Cup when we would place like last of the top world teams, whether it was 7th or 9th or 5th or whatever it was. And, you know, I just remember being on the bus, like every single time we would go to French Cup, that like mini worlds, and be like, okay, like Nexus got 7th the year that they won worlds. Like we can do this. Like, right. And you know what I mean?
French
so just felt,
Excellent.
You know, and it just felt like, oh my God, like after all of this, like, can't we just sort of like catch a break? But, so it definitely was a moment that I was like, okay, like what do I need to be for the team? And like, I don't know.
I think we all have those moments too, and at different times, and it's hard to navigate those because I don't know, I feel totally torn.
Like, it's interesting to me that we define good leadership by robotic humanity.
Right,
yeah.
right.
I think I was never a leader on a team, but I do recall a moment where a leader on the team did show emotion, showed being upset. And it kind of, for me, it was like, oh my God, I'm relying on this person so much to lead the way. Like we need to be there for them as well.
Right.
So do you think that your team were like, oh my God, Jenna's a human, we should see if she's all right? Like some of them, yeah.
Well, I remember for me, my first year on Nexus, skating with some of my idols that I had watched for years, like Nicole, somebody that to me was so untouchable, coming from a junior team that wasn't very recognized, coming to Nexus, seeing all these big names suddenly being not on the same level as them, it made them more relatable for me. Right. Seeing those real moments, not always seeing them on the ice in their element, seeing them outside of that and seeing them challenged personally and on the ice. That was actually reassuring for me and humbling to watch. And that just made it, that just made me want to be more of a leader, seeing them real like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking to that sort of leadership role, and we all kind of came from the same sort of cut from the same cloth, so to speak, for years of synchronized skating. Do you have any sort of advice as to how someone transitioning currently through from skating world to not competitive skating anymore? Like, do you have any advice as to what they could do that maybe is either the same as your path or like different, or what would you suggest?
Definitely to not lose your confidence, because I think like we come off of these like elite level competitions as such confident people because we've achieved as much as we possibly can in like this small amount of time. And when I transitioned into work, like I like, especially being on a team for so long, like you understand sort of seniority in the sense that like you just respect people with seniority. And I knew that, you know, I was going in and I was going to be this like low man on the totem pole for a while. But I also definitely think I like lost a little bit of sight of like how much confidence and how much life experience I also had with me.
Right.
And like even to this day, like I second guess myself all the time because I just expect like this perfection, and like I can't not make a mistake, or I can't make a mistake without like feeling so awful, because you know, synchronized skating, like you always should be striving to be like absolutely perfect. And
Right.
I don't know. So I think that's like one big thing that I wish someone had maybe told me, was to just like keep hold of that confidence. Because I mean, it's also weird because like you don't want to use the term expert, but you do become this sort of like really knowledgeable person in skating, and then you go and switch and you have so much to learn. Like it's okay to be a little bit confident, especially in like a big city in New York, you know, like you can just sort of definitely lose sight of who you are with, you know, but you have to remember like you came from somewhere and you deserve to be there almost.
Yes.
Seat at the table.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's great.
But I completely think and I think that's why that failure question that Emily asked you is my favorite one, because it's so interesting how a perceived failure ends up in the most beautiful lesson or the most beautiful opportunity.
Yeah.
And actually, like I have a skater this year who will be skating internationally with Nexus, and it wouldn't have been possible at all if Worlds had happened last year because the federation wouldn't have released him.
Right.
Like, you know, this awful moment happened, but now it doesn't seem so awful. And it's like they have this phrase called kismet. That's like kind of a bittersweet moment. And I don't know, I think you just highlighted so many of those beautifully for us.
Mm-hmm.
Growing moments.
Absolutely. So I think we've come to the end of this. That was great. We got a lot of good information, and we would really like to thank you for this interview. You're so loved in the skating world, and I'm sure in your career as well. We are officially extending the invite to Toronto and Quebec. We could do, you know, come to Toronto, road trip to Quebec, visit Victoria.
Yes.
Right? As soon as this pandemic's over and you can come. And we'll collaborate, create, share ideas, you know, do
I
what
would
we
love
do
that.
best.
Bring your skates and your water skis. And
Yes.
Yes.
like
We'll melt the ice.
Yeah. Like an inch of water.
We'll make
And
it.
you guys are all always welcome to come to New York City. We have plenty of room. Come on in.
That big outdoor rink in Central Park.
Yes.
Yes.
Woman,
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens, but definitely.
Emily, you just like froze. Enjoy.
Yeah.
We should make a flash mob. Okay, I just spoiled that.
the idea.
The flash might be done, but the mob could still happen.
We'll be too many ideas. It will definitely have to be like a whole week-long event.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
It comes about from it for sure.
We can do all the different rinks in New York if you guys come in the winter.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jenna.
Hey.
Oh my gosh, thank you guys. It was amazing.
From all of us here at the Edge Collective, we're so happy you're able to join us on this video today. As you guys know, we are new to this, so there are a lot of startup costs to consider.
Please check out the link below for GoFundMe. If you are willing and able to help, it'd be greatly appreciated.
And thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you next time.